Every business on Earth worries about demand. Will customers show up this quarter? Will the market soften? Will competitors take share? Will a recession cut spending? A cremation facility has none of these problems. The demand is guaranteed. It arrives on a schedule that actuaries can predict to within a fraction of a percent. It is entirely recession-proof. People do not delay death because the economy is difficult. And the customer, by definition, never complains. This is not a morbid observation. It is the foundation of one of the most quietly profitable and structurally resilient business models in the modern economy. The piece of equipment at the center of the operation is called a retort, a high-temperature industrial furnace designed for one specific purpose. A commercial retort costs between $50,000 and $150,000. The primary operating cost is natural gas. A single cremation cycle takes 2 to 3 hours and consumes a predictable, calculatable amount of fuel. The actual cost of performing a cremation at the trade level, the raw operational cost of running the machine through one cycle, runs somewhere between $200 and $400. A family arranging a direct cremation, the most basic service available, pays somewhere between $1,000 and $2,500 for exactly that process.
The gap between 200 and 1,000, or between 400 and 2,500, is the economics of the cremation business in a single number. Now, the upsell architecture, because the basic service is just the beginning of the revenue model. The urn. A family receives a temporary plastic container after cremation. It is functional. It is adequate. It is also deeply uncomfortable to leave your mother in for any longer than necessary. Urns on the commercial market range from $50 to $5,000, with a wide middle market of decorative, personalized, themed, and specialty containers at prices that have nothing to do with function and everything to do with grief. The memorial service. A direct cremation requires no ceremony. Many families arrange one afterward, and the funeral home that handled the cremation is positioned to provide the venue, the officiant, the flowers, the guest book, the catering arrangements, and the printed materials for that service. The scattering ceremony. For families who want the ashes scattered at sea, in a meaningful location, or from the air, operators offer organized ceremonies ranging from modest to elaborate. Pre-need sales. This is the most unusual revenue mechanism in any consumer industry. Families and individuals purchase cremation services in advance of death, locking in current pricing against future need.
The operator receives revenue today for a service it will deliver at some unknown future point. The cash comes in immediately. The cost is incurred later. The float on that cash, invested between receipt and service delivery, is an additional revenue stream that most industries cannot access. Now, the structural shift transforming the industry. For most of the 20th century, burial was the dominant choice in Western cultures. A traditional burial, casket, embalming, cemetery plot, monument, costs on average between $7,000 and $10,000. The funeral home that manages this process earns meaningful margin on each component. The cemetery earns on the plot and on perpetual care fees that continue generating revenue for decades. The cremation rate has been climbing for decades and shows no sign of reversing. It now exceeds 60% in the United States. In Japan, it exceeds 99%. In many European countries, it passed the majority long ago. The trend is global, driven by cost, urbanization, environmental preference, and declining attachment to traditional burial customs. For the conventional funeral industry, this shift is genuinely painful. A direct cremation generates a fraction of the revenue that a traditional burial generates. Every family that chooses direct cremation over full burial services represents thousands of dollars of revenue that the industry no longer captures.
For operators who built their model around cremation from the start, the same trend is a rising tide. The economics created by this shift have attracted a type of investor that does not typically engage with the funeral business: private equity. The death care industry is, from a financial structuring standpoint, extraordinarily attractive. Demand is predictable and inelastic. The customer base is not price-sensitive in the way most consumer markets are. Purchasing decisions are made under time pressure, emotional duress, and often by people with no prior experience of the process. The industry is highly fragmented, with tens of thousands of independent operators, each potentially acquirable. And the recurring nature of the pre-need sales model creates a revenue profile that resembles a subscription business. Large consolidators have spent years systematically acquiring independent funeral homes and cremation facilities. As concentration increases, competitive pressure on pricing decreases. The local family-owned cremation operator that charged competitive rates faces an acquiring entity with national scale, centralized operations, and no obligation to maintain the pricing that the independents set. The dead cannot vote. The bereaved rarely have time to comparison shop. Regulatory scrutiny of the funeral industry has historically been limited. The combination of these factors has made the cremation sector one of the quieter private equity deployment zones of the past decade.
There is a version of this business that operates with genuine integrity. It provides a dignified, transparent, fairly priced service at one of the most difficult moments in a family's experience. Many operators do exactly this. There is also a version that exists at the other end of the pricing spectrum, where the gap between the $200 operational cost and the $2,000 family invoice is the entire point of the enterprise. The demand is guaranteed. The customer cannot come back. The only question is what you charge for the certainty of both.